And welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff, live here from the Giants facility in East Rutherford, New Jersey. I'm Paul Dottino. He's Jeff Feagles.
Yes, I am.
It is the final day of the Giants' mandatory 3-day minicamp. The players are being excused as we speak for a 6-week summer vacation. Jeff, I know you certainly remember those well.
Love it. Yes.
And they will reconvene back here at the Quest Diagnostics Training Center in late July to begin training camp as they prepare for the 2017 season. We will discuss some of the things that the Giants will do during the course of the summer. The coaching staff will get some final details in place to prepare for their return. We'll talk about some of the things that the Giants did during this 3-day minicamp. And, of course, we're taking your phone calls at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513, or hit us up on Twitter at #GiantsChat. For those of you watching on Twitter, go over to Giants.com and you can enjoy the rest of the program for the next hour. Once again, 201-939-4513. Jeff, you played in this league for so many years. You know what getaway day is at the end of minicamp.
No, it's exciting because for me, if you worked hard, all the OTAs, the off-season workouts, the minicamp, and now it's like, okay, the next time I'm going to be in this building, it's going to be training camp, and that's when all systems go. But you get a good chance to get away with your family. You get a good chance to just relax a little bit. I'm sure that there was a lot of things said in team meetings today and position meetings about being safe, being smart, knowing that you represent the Giants organization off the field. And I guess the biggest I would say worry from coach's standpoint and from an organizational standpoint is that these guys, you know, they've been let loose for 6 weeks now. And so they have to be careful when they come back that there's no problems and this and that. And that's all part of being professional and being – but the Giants do their job on character issues and knowing that what's going to happen to these guys when they're away from here, that everything will be okay. But I remember this day was great. You know, it was always a short day. The guys pulled into the parking lot this morning with their cars running. I don't even think they turned them off. It was just a lot of fun because it is, you know, for a professional athlete at the pro football level, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and they know that these next 6 weeks are going to be the last time before they get into the hall of the season, and a season that a lot of the Giants fans are looking forward to, and more importantly, I think they are also. So it does mean a lot to these guys, but they have to stay in shape. They will. There'll be a conditioning test when they come back. They have their marching orders. They understand what they have to do. The strength and conditioning staff gives them a book. Hey, by the way, Paul, this is what you need to do for the next 6 weeks. It will be some rest, but I think they'll gear it up towards the end of their rest period, and once they start to come into training camp, it's all systems go, man, and I think that everybody's excited about it.
All right, now following practice, we had the opportunity to talk to 4 guys at the podium holding news conferences. Jeff, I want to get your take on what each one of the guys said.
Sure.
We start with Coach McAdoo, and of course, for most of your career, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat did not exist.
No, it didn't.
So that was really,
and I'm really glad.
Yes, you were, and that really led to what was a quiet summer. And Coach McAdoo simply said what he wants over the next 6 weeks, and he said, I know the guys have a lot of pride. They're smart. They'll wear the NY with pride. They'll wear their names with pride, and they're going to. It's a good group, and they're going to be fine. But, you know, obviously, you got to be careful about social media because over the course of the next 6 weeks, he said the one thing he does not want to do is get a phone call in the middle of the night.
Well, yeah, I mean, for many reasons. Number one, it's just something that, you know, is uncalled for. But you guys got to be smart. And listen, you know, whatever you put on Twitter, on social media, it stays there. There's no retracting it, and you have to be very, very careful what you say. I throw caution to the wind with these guys. It's the fact that just be professional. You know, and don't say anything that's going to get you or your team or your teammates in trouble. If it has to do with contracts or guys that are hurt or anything like that, just shut up. Just be quiet. Go about your business. Come back here at the end of July and get started. And unfortunately, that's not always the truth. It's going to happen. Some guys do it, but the coaches have to do it, Paul. They got to let these guys understand that this is the policy that we want. We can't control you with your Twitter accounts. We're not monitoring. It's not a big room where we have everybody's Twitter handle up and seeing what everybody's saying. Although there might be. There might be. I don't think it's a big room, but maybe there is somebody that they hired to just checking it out every day.
The Twitter police.
The Twitter police. But just don't go to Twitter jail. Really.
Yeah.
Be smart.
All right. Enough of Coach McAdoo. We go to JPP, who had something very interesting to say. First of all, as one of the team leaders now, he did step up and say, I reminded those guys, be smart, because if you don't do the right thing and you don't work out and you don't condition yourselves, it will show when you get back to training camp. And certainly, you know from experience, Jeff, guys who don't do what they're supposed to do and come in a little soft, a little extra belly fat, you'll notice it right away.
Well, they'll notice it because they've done all the testing. They understand, and they also, I know when you leave this day, the strength and conditioning coach and the trainers tell you, when you report, this is your reporting weight.
Right.
When you report, this is what you will do. And they have conditioning tests that will identify if you did anything, and the conditioning test is based upon the 6 weeks of conditioning. It's a type of test to show you if you weren't working out, you will not pass this test. It's very kind of it's an unfair way to do it as a player. But
Landon Collins has to beware because too much rice pudding is not going to go over well.
Yeah, that won't go well. But I will tell you, if you want to listen to one person, JPP is the guy that you should listen to.
Yes.
Because a couple years ago, you know what he did July 4th,
right.
And that was something that he shouldn't have done. And and every guy in this team should understand that. Take it from him. He understands. He almost lost his career. He lost a finger over it, and he's very fortunate to be able to come back and do what he did the last couple of years to get in the position, get himself a new contract, and now he's somebody that they should listen to. And so don't be going and doing stupid things on July 4th that involve fireworks, All
right. Now, he also said something very interesting. He was a full go during the spring workouts, and a lot of people wondered after his groin surgery at the end of last season, which cost him several games plus the playoffs.
Yep.
There was some thought that maybe he wouldn't be a full go, but he was not limited in any capacity, and he claims that he's going to be better than ever this year. He is really primed, says he's in great shape, and I believe him for one.
Well, yeah.
But why not?
But also, why not? Exactly, because you think about the last 2 years. Okay, number one with his hand, trying to come back from that injury, just a substantial injury. He had to basically learn how to redo his hand. Everything to play with it in normal day. The other thing is when you come back from an injury and you're healed, and you're in shape and everything feels good. That's the weight off of your shoulders. You're feeling like, okay, this is good. Now, just continue to get better and come into training camp because this team does need Olivia Vernon and JPP on those edges all season. Okay, you saw what they did together. They didn't play much together last year because OV was hurt here and JP was hurt. So I think collectively they only played maybe 5 to 7 games together.
Well, they certainly weren't healthy together very long because
both of them were hurt
the whole first half of the season. And they had that bad wrist.
They were both hurt all year, and so this is very exciting for the defense to have 2 healthy guys coming back. So.
Davis Webb, the rookie quarterback who just got done talking, he was the last guy to speak, but I want to mention what he said because I thought it was really unique, where as most rookies come into the league and they talk about how the NFL is so fast and how things speed up for them, he had exactly the opposite take because playing at Texas Tech and then playing at Cal out of that Red Raider offense, he said, I was used to taking 150 snaps in practice. We were snapping the ball 90 times a game, and we didn't huddle. And he said, so I get out here, and I got to worry about slowing things down.
Well, he's not getting that out here. He's probably getting if a third of that in practice.
Not getting nearly as many snaps, having to understand that there are 15 words in a play call. And he said, for me, it was a matter of slowing things down. And that's exactly, again, the opposite of what you usually hear.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that would bother most quarterbacks if they didn't have the intelligence is the fact that if you played in that type of offense in college, you weren't huddling, you weren't calling plays. It was all formations, and it was hand signals from the sideline. So there's one thing that he has to get used to is huddling up. Well, the Giants don't huddle up that much either, but the fact is that they still have to call some plays.
Yeah.
But
he did say the checks will be easy, though, because he's done that in school
That's
going
to be really easy for him, just terminology changes, things like that. But reading coverages, and one of the reasons they drafted this guy is because of his intelligence and other things, for that matter. But the fact that he needs to understand that there won't be a lot of play calling in huddles, but when he does, he's going to be expected to say the play that's this long when it used to be this big. So
201-939-4513. We will get to your calls in one moment. One more guy I want to talk to Jeff about because he is literally the big elephant in the room. The guy who has basically caught most of the criticism from so many people for a lot of the time here, and that's Ereck Flowers, who we've seen how sculpted he is. We've seen how much quicker he looks. We see how much more defined he looks. We've heard the coaches say nothing but great things about how he has worked out. He has been here the entire offseason. He has gotten stronger and done better in the weight and conditioning program. Well, yesterday, and folks, remember, I've been telling you this now for months, but nobody wanted to listen because the writers didn't want to believe it. Yesterday, Justin Pugh let the cat out of the bag. Ereck Flowers has been involved in a boxing program and a hand combat program to help his punch and his hand placement.
Good.
Which, for the last 2 years, has been a big asset for Justin Pugh himself. It was Pugh and Mike Solari, the offensive line coach, who convinced Ereck Flowers that this would be a good thing for you to do. And Flowers did not go home to Florida. He stayed here. He enrolled in a boxing program. Just got done telling us now that not only has it helped with his hand placement and his strike, but also helped his footwork. Because you have to be quick on your feet in the boxing ring. You have to have some nimble movements, if you will. And, Jeff, I have to tell you, whether or not the results turn out to be everything the Giants want, I don't know. But I know this. His preparation, his eating patterns, his weight training, his conditioning, his boxing technique stuff, these are 4 reasons why Ereck Flowers should be a better player this year.
Well, there's probably more than 4, but we'll start with those. I mean, first of all, the young man finally understands that this is what it takes to be a pro. And I'll tell you right now, you may ask yourself, why wasn't he doing these the last 2 years? But that's
water under the bridge.
Water under the bridge.
He's a third-year player. He's maturing.
But that is a step in the right direction. I think that nobody's going to be able to tell this until they get in pads and all of a sudden there's live rushes. And of course, but that's okay. That's all right. But he basically has taken the initiative to get better. Obviously, Coach Solari has told him these are the things you need to work on. He's reached out to some players, one being Justin Pugh. Hey, what can I do to better myself as a pro? So I will tell you this, none of this is going to hurt him. That's for sure. The only thing that would have hurt him is if he did nothing and was stubborn and said, "This is the guy I am." Okay, but I think really
that wouldn't have gone over
the writing on the wall is there for Ereck Flowers. We all know that. In his 3rd year, this is time to it's make or break for this young man. And I think that he's in his mind he wants to go out and prove all the naysayers wrong, which we hope he will. But I will tell you this. None of this is going to hurt him. I think that he's going to have to the one thing that I want to see is that with all this improvement that he's done, Paul, and everything that he is kind of bringing to the table, will he revert back to some of his things that he did? Yes, he will. It's just there's no question in my mind that it happens, but it'll be a quicker turnaround for him because he has prepared himself to get better at certain things. Not like, okay, Paul, I just want you to change this, and he hasn't worked on it. He's worked on it now, so it'll be a faster adjustment for him. But don't think for a minute that some of the things are not going to come back because a player, okay, you can't teach old dogs new
overnight.
You cannot teach old dogs new tricks sometimes. And they have to kind of they have to have reps. So we'll see in training camp how he takes what he's done in the offseason and then molds it into his new style of play, which we all hope will be better because we all know that it needs to improve. And I think that really, if we haven't talked about Bobby Hart in this too, but both those guys together.
He didn't do boxing, but he did all the other stuff.
That's okay. But I think at least both of them understand that they have a job to do on both of those ends. There's going to be competition, and we need those guys to play well. And I think that they will come in. Their mindset's there. This goes to show you where veteran leadership can help a team. Justin Pugh is one of those veterans. Okay, I'm sure that Richburg has also talked to both of those guys. Okay, so these are – and to me, this is kind of good because I feel like this might be something where this brings this offensive line group together, kind of the cohesiveness that we've always wanted to have. But it's been hard because it's been plug and play. Guys have been out of lineup here, this guy. So maybe hopefully this will get this offensive line cohesiveness and a little bit of grittiness to these guys that can play this season. Because we're going to need the Giants. I say the fans and everybody else, they need the Giants offensive line to play well.
Yeah, one thing to keep in mind about what Jeff is saying in terms of there's still going to be mistakes made, but the coaches have said they can already tell the conditioning has been so much improved with both Hart and Flowers, and that when you're in better condition, then fatigue becomes less of a factor. And when that happens, it means you're more apt to maintain your technique and your integrity, because tired players get sloppy.
Well, unconditioned players get sloppy. I mean,
exactly.
Guys, I'm not saying that these guys were out of shape, but I'm saying that the better conditioned athlete you are and the better trained you are, the better you are to adapt at change in a game.
Your efficiency will be better.
There's no question. When you get beat and you have worked on certain things, your footwork or your punch, you're not going to get beat anymore. You're going to get beat in the National Football League because the other guy gets paid just like you do. But the fact is that if you're working on the things that you're supposed to and you've increased your level of play as far as conditioning and strength and agility, in my mind, Eric Flowers' agility is the biggest thing for me. I don't think he's not a strong guy. I just think his footwork and his handwork, those are some of the things that I think that are really going to help him. And listen, when those defensive line, all they want to do is the game of football on the ends is all about leverage. Okay, so the defensive ends love to get leverage on those offensive linemen, but if the offensive lineman has good footwork and technique, that's going to be very difficult. That's something that these guys have been working on because of the alternative things that they've been doing in their training that's going to help them this season.
Guys, that's enough from us. That wraps up the entire day.
All right, see y'all later.
And the finale of minicamp, so we will turn it over to you. 201-939-4513. Haji from Mississippi, you're first on the program. Hello.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
Great.
Good, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I just want to talk about Evan Engram real quick.
Okay,
sure.
We like to talk about him.
All right, see, I'm from Oxford, Mississippi right now, and I work for the men's football team. I'm the equipment manager, so I've seen from firsthand experience how great Evan can be for the New York Giants.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, everybody's excited about him up here in New York. We got to see a little bit of him in minicamp and rookie camp, things like that. He definitely has a dynamic way about him, and really from a leadership, I guess he was quite the leader for Ole Miss. He'll be that type of leader at the tight end position here too.
He certainly seems very eager to learn, and from what I understand from the coaches, he's picking things up pretty quickly too.
Good.
Also, Giants, they've been having a pattern of drafting the best player available, but also high character. So I can see this is a perfect fit for him in New York.
Well, listen, you know what? You would know about his character more than we would. We've only got to know him.
Exactly.
So I feel like, that has been one of the characteristics that people like about this young man is his character, his leadership, his work ethic. All those things come into consideration when you go and draft a player in the first round, and I think certainly that'll show here. And it's good to hear from you because you've been around him a little bit longer. And,
right.
As long as he's not one of those guys that comes into the equipment room and is always begging for stuff all the time.
Oh, no, he comes in, but he comes in to help us actually.
See, that's good.
Everyone loves him around here.
Well, the equipment staff will like him around here then if that's what the deal is. So the type of guy I'm talking about. If you're an equipment manager, you know exactly the type of guy I'm talking about. That just comes in and asks for everything but never does anything. We don't like those kind of guys.
I know what you're talking about. I also have another question about Eli Manning and his glove on his hand. Is there something about that, or it's what is that?
You know what, Paul? What about that? I mean, I saw that. I mean, and we've never really talked about it. At least I haven't on our show here. But
yeah, here's the deal. Manning, along with Geno Smith and Josh Johnson, all wore a glove on their left hand during the entire OTA and minicamp sessions. And what we were told is it was simply just to kind of hold on to the ball better for grip purposes.
Okay.
That's all it was. And in fact, Eli and Richburg had 2 mishandled snaps in yesterday's practice.
Take the glove off.
After each one of them, McAdoo told both of them, take a play off.
Take the glove off. Put 2 gloves on.
I'm just saying. Now, interesting in that Davis Webb did not try or experiment with the gloves at all.
Well, Davis Webb is not going to see the field, so it doesn't really matter.
In theory. Thanks for the call. Appreciate the time.
Listen, I will tell you this.
Yes.
Anything to help ball security, right? I mean,
agreed.
And pocket awareness, things like that. Because if you look at what happened last year with all the fumbles that Eli had, okay, maybe the glove will help. I hope that it's a sticky one.
What we don't know is if he's going to wear it during the season. That hasn't been expressed to us yet. We were simply told that during these workouts, the glove was for traction purposes, holding on to the ball better.
Well, I think didn't Peyton wear a glove? I think Peyton wore a glove.
He did.
So maybe they had some cigars and beers one night, and Peyton said, "Hey, Eli, you
try
have a lot of fumbles. Maybe you should try this glove." You know?
Yeah. So Eli
A lot of guys wear them.
Eli talked yesterday, and the glove never came up, and so basically a couple of the coaches who I've talked to said, we don't know if he's going to wear it during the season or not. Just have to ask him when he gets here. And
Well,
that's a deal.
We'll see. I mean, that first day of training camp, if he comes out there with a new glove.
Then again, he might just
I would
scrap it
imagine.
after the preseason.
To be honest with you,
he might.
Once you start practicing with something like that, you're going to keep it.
Okay.
Yeah. It is, because it's a little bit different. It really is, and you don't want to keep switching back and forth, because all of a sudden it starts.
That'd be a bad idea.
Well, it starts to play tricks on your mind.
I can believe that.
So you want to stay consistent with either yes or no.
Dave from Cranford, you're next on the show. Hello.
How are you guys?
Great.
Good.
Good. Hey, Jeff. You need to take a little break from your golf career as well, because I've been at an outing this year with you where you basically killed the rest of us because your golf game's too good.
Well, I haven't played golf in a couple weeks, so I'm reacting to that. So yes, I have taken off a little bit. So
that's helpful for us, and best of luck with your son down at Miami this year.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Hurricane bound.
It's right around the corner. We're heading down to Miami on the 2nd of July, and he's going to summer school, and they're gonna
He's got a lot of ex-Giant fans or fans of his father rooting for him. So
well,
he's got a lot of people in the camp,
really
so
appreciate that. I don't think he understands how hot it's going to be down there till he gets there, but we'll work through it.
I'm sure.
Well, thank you.
Paul, I wanted to ask you in particular, Jeff, you too. The most, going into the season, my opinion, I'm a crazy fan. I tape all the games and then I rewatch them, and I not like Paul, but pretty close, and so. When I looked at the past season, the group that I look at that can add the most step up this year looking forward to me is the group of tight ends. And,
okay.
I don't think that's a big surprise, but I really look at it, and one guy in particular that I think, minus injuries, has always been very well regarded, and I think you're hearing some great things out of camp for him, is Matt LaCosse. And I know there's a big number, and Paul, you do a great job of breaking things down in terms of, how many players they can keep at certain positions. But I have to think, and I hate this because, people lose jobs and that's tough. But I got to think that as I look at someone like Will Tye, they kind of know what his ceiling is, and they kind of know what they could get out of Will Tye. Whereas Matt LaCosse, again, assuming he can stay healthy, and that's been a big assumption for him.
And that's it. Yeah, that's the big deal. I don't want to cut you short, but that's really the big deal. Look, when LaCosse arrived here as an undrafted rookie free agent, 3 seasons ago, actually 2 seasons and now this spring, he's been in 3 Giants camps. From the first day he got here, he was ticketed by me. He was the dark horse pick for me that year to make the team. I absolutely love this guy. I watched this tape at Illinois. He was a slot guy. He was out wide. He was in line. He was a fullback. He does it all. He's versatile. He's got the skill set. He's got the hands. He's got the attitude. He's got the knowledge. Everything about this guy is wonderful, but he doesn't stay on the field. He's constantly getting hurt. Hamstring, thigh, knee. And for 2 years, he couldn't get on the field. And now here he is again trying to win a job. How many tight ends are the Giants going to keep? Engram's going to be there. We know that Ellison's going to be there. You think Jarrell Adams is probably going to be there.
Yep.
Does Matt LaCosse need the Giants to keep 4 tight ends to make this team? Because I think he can beat out Will Tye. I think he's got a much more versatile skill set and an upside. I'm with you 1,000%.
I think that we have to have this discussion in about 2.5 months from now, when we find out if Matt can make it through training camp and the competition
That's
is there.
it.
He certainly has the skill set that Paul said.
He's had glue for hands this spring.
And
I'll
he's
tell you, he's been great.
Yeah, so, I mean, the bottom line with this guy is not that they don't like what he does. It's just a matter of health, and if he can prove that he can stay healthy, he has a good shot at making the team.
Can I ask you guys to make one last comment? I'll let you go.
And by the way,
and that is kind of
go ahead. One second.
Into
all right, go ahead.
The competition. I just wanted to make you answer one thing, and that is, I actually think, and I think, Paul, you might agree with this based on some of your comments, I actually see Dallas really, making a big bet here. And I really hate watching the media coming out and how they talk about Dallas, because they talk about how they wanted to revamp their secondary as if that was their plan, which it really was a matter of they were more hamstrung by bad salary cap decisions, and this was the way they had to go.
Right.
And I really see going into this year, I actually think our biggest competition in a division is actually going to be Philadelphia this year than it is going to be Dallas. And I think that's going to become a big storyline in the NFL because, and I think I feel much more comfortable matching up. I think our defensive line matches up well against the Dallas offense. I think our offense will match up very well against their defense. But I think that, I think Philadelphia, which has historically given us trouble, I think they're going to be a much tougher, division opponent. They don't play the same schedule that Dallas plays, which is a first-place schedule. So just like to get your guys' comments on kind of where you see the division shaking out.
I'm not a believer in Dallas being at the top of the heap this year. I don't think they're a contender. I think that Prescott and Zeke are going to have some issues in their sophomore season. I think their defense, which we have talked about on this show, by the way, many times, they may have 6 new starters on defense from the team that played in the playoffs this past year.
Well, they need it.
They did, but my point is that means in September they'll be running around like chickens without heads on.
Well, I wouldn't be so. I don't know. I look at a Giants defense. It was so bad last year, and they got a lot of new free agents, and look what happened. So anything can happen. I think Dallas.
But they're more inexperienced. The new guys that they're bringing in are more inexperienced than the Giants guys were.
Well, I think
big difference.
I think that typically when you hear of a player that's going into their second year, they have the sophomore slump. There's going to be some of that in those guys. There's a lot of distractions off the field. I would think that Elliott probably would have more of those distractions because I don't see Prescott as being a guy that's just really going to things are going to bother him off the field. He's pretty straight and narrow, But I think Dallas, the division to me, I think that Philly has gotten better. I think Philadelphia has gotten better. I think the Redskins have improved. Obviously, the Giants. I think it's going to be a tough division again. I don't think that if there's a one team that you could throw out that I would think there's a leader of the division, it's got to be this team here. I think the Giants are a team that people should probably look out for. I think that they can win the NFC East this year.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the phone call.
Yeah.
I did want to try to add before.
Thank you, Dave.
Just take note that last year the Giants did keep 2 years ago 4 tight ends on the roster.
Well, it can happen.
It can happen.
Well, I mean, you got to.
It can happen.
And I guess we had the conversation of Ellison. Is he a tight end?
Well, that's the thing. He can play some fullback. So if they don't keep a separate fullback, you can keep 4 tight ends because he's a pseudo fullback.
He is, and he's also a pseudo offensive lineman.
Yeah.
When you think about him and being in, because I mean, the guy doesn't catch passes. He's a blocker.
Right.
So. And again, it also depends on depth. It depends on other positions where they may need to carry an extra lineman, and so that's going to be, the tight end position is going to be sacrificed because of that. They may have to keep an extra defensive lineman, so they can't keep a 4th tight end. It all comes down to health and how the roster shapes up at the end of training camp. But I will tell you this: he's got a good shot to make the team if he stays healthy.
If
There's
he
no
stays
question.
healthy, Matt LaCosse is an NFL player.
There's no question.
Case closed.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's had a great offseason, a great minicamp, all the OTAs. He's probably the one guy on this. A couple guys have had really good off seasons. He's one of them, and he has a lot of promise. He just has to stay on the field.
I feel bad like I've jinxed him, though, because I've been talking him up now for 3 years.
Well, hey, listen, it's not you.
Matt, I'm sorry.
It's not you. It's not you, Paul. You know that.
201-939-4513. Richie, you are next on the show. Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi.
How are you?
Hey, good. So I was just wanting to talk about JPP a little bit. An idea that, like something I was swirling around my head the past couple of days. JPP coming off of a season, where he had, I don't know, maybe one of his highest snap counts that he probably ever had. And I'm happy that we got him because the Giants are a better team having him here with the team. But I don't know if he's able to handle that high of a snap count as he did last year. I just did a quick Google search on the injury that he sustained last season.
The groin.
Sports hernia.
Yeah.
And the quick Google search, I'm no doctor or anything, but it's pretty much saying that it's like a wear and tear kind of an injury. Something that something overused, and it just kind of failed. So I hope, Spags maybe doesn't use him as much because, I'll be fine, giving Aquara and Wynn and even Avery Moss a little bit more snaps. But, that's my only thing. Do you guys, agree with that? Do you think maybe he should get, less snaps this year?
Well, I think it all depends on depth. I mean, look what happened last year. There wasn't a lot of depth. That's why those guys never came off the field. And so there still isn't a lot of depth.
We don't know.
So we don't know. And
we don't know.
But I'll tell you, if you had the depth and you could say yes, I would say yeah, he needs to come out because it's tough for a guy to play that many games and that many snaps. Those guys are great athletes. They're in good condition, but they're humans. They need some rest. And so it just depends on who's behind them. And like you had prefaced the question with the depth. Aquara, you've got Wynn.
Taylor.
So you got a lot of guys there that if they can prove that they can get a uniform on game day, then I think that JPP and Olivia Vernon will come off the field a little bit more than they did last year.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind, actually, helping develop, some of the younger guys that we have. Hopefully, it's dope to see what Odigizua does if he can, stay healthy throughout the year. But yeah, it does come into that depth part. I just don't know. I hope to see, JPP play a full season, but I just don't want him to be there. But he's definitely a difference maker. There's no doubt about it. So
well, I think him coming off the injury that he had and he's feeling the way he is, has a lot of promise. It is difficult for these guys to play all 16 games because of the position and the nature of the position that they play. It's tough, but which makes it more importantly why you got to have good depth. You really do.
Yeah, it really is. That's all I have for today, guys.
All right, thank you.
Hope you guys have a good day.
Thanks,
you too,
Rich.
Richie.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me go back, if I may, to the 2007 Super Bowl season, which, of course, Jeff was a part of.
10 years coming up.
It is, the anniversary. You're looking forward to a lot of things this year in conjunction with that team.
Yes.
But let's go back to what Spags did with Tuck, OC, and Michael Strahan. They each played about 45 snaps a game. And at that time, teams were averaging approximately 65 or so snaps on offense. Now they're averaging a little over 70 because teams are going more to the hurry-up stuff. But my point is that those three guys were all valued as high-production players. And so Spags literally tried to limit them to between 40 and 45 apiece because he knew he could rotate all three. Now, he doesn't have that kind of depth or quality, at least he doesn't think so right now, with the guys the Giants have behind OV and JPP. But what I would say is, if he could get 20 to 25 maybe out of one of those guys.
Or two
even, that would help.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to burn these guys out. The two starters don't need to be on the field 95% of the snaps. That's not good.
And also, you remember, the pace of the game is a little bit quicker than it was 10 years ago. More passing downs. Now you're, it is a lot more for those guys to play nowadays than it was back then because, 60 to 65 plays that's getting it done now.
Yeah, so, that's what, they're not going to get 45 out of just one of those guys because none of those guys are Justin Tuck.
If I had 10,
but
I was winded. 10's a lot for me in one game. I have 10 plays in a game. We're not doing very well.
I was just going to say, thank goodness on that team you didn't have to play 10 snaps too often.
No. The most I ever kicked in one game was 11. I had 11 punts in Seattle. It was an overtime game, but still.
Oh, wow.
11 punts in one game. Both teams. We both had 11 punts. And do you know that in my career as a professional, 22 seasons, I never had a game where I did not punt. There was
not once?
Not one game. And do you know that the next year when Matt Dodge came in?
Yes.
2 games.
I know that.
There was 2 games that he didn't kick.
That's remarkable.
Yeah. In fact, the only game I never punted in collegiately or professional was against Notre Dame when I was at Miami. We crushed them 52-0. That was the year before the Catholics versus the Convicts.
Yeah.
That's probably what set it off because I didn't punt that game. That made everybody mad.
My big question for you is, had you gone through an NFL game and not punted, would you have given the check back?
No, I would not have because the game is fun. You work, the rest of the stuff is work the whole week. Although I would have held field goals, so I still would have got some action.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Get to a couple of Twitter comments. I do have one here. Ben Gruen says the Giants' offense did not build any leads where the defense could relax for a series or two, and that kept JPP in for every snap.
Well, there's no question. And the point of emphasis on the first part of that question or statement is the offense. The offense has got to be able to control the ball, control the clock, and put some more points up on the board to give this defense a little bit of a break. This defense did remarkably compared to what the offense did production-wise last year. That needs to change if this team's going to go any further than it did last year. There's no question.
Ben also mentions to us one thing you know about Dallas, they're extremely well coached. He's a big fan of Jason Garrett and company.
Well, I mean, listen, there's always been that thing, oh, is Jason Garrett, is he going to be gone? Is he going to be, you know, listen, coaches they're good coaches, okay? It's just a matter of the players that get the coaches fired most of the time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, he is a good coach. I don't know about disciplined. I don't know if there's that much, I don't know. I don't see the Cowboys as being one of those teams, if you would think the most disciplined team in the NFL is who? It's got to be the Patriots.
I don't think there's any question about
Okay. I wouldn't put Dallas up there in the top 10.
No.
There's no way.
No.
But not to say anything, to take anything away from Jason Garrett. He's got a beautiful mind for the game, and
he's a good football man. There's no question.
There's no question. Yep.
A.J. Marshall says, your thoughts about Michael Hunter. He's a corner on this team, second-year player. He says he's been mentioned a lot, including with Spags and the presser yesterday. Hunter, last year in token action with the parent club did not fare very well. Now, the good news for him is that he is back in camp and has drawn a lot of praise, and it is his second year. Last year being a rookie, went through a lot of bumps and a lot of misfortune because rookies go through those things. Clearly he's on the upswing. Now, how good can he be? Only training camp and preseason is going to tell us that, Jeff. But the Giants are looking for a fourth corner. I think Dante Dion can be a backup slot corner, but he can't play the outside. He's too small. Hunter, however, is one of those 6-foot corners who has length. If he really can develop into something quickly over the summer, the Giants would love to have him.
Well, he's going to get an opportunity. He's get that, and that's all a young player can ask of, is he get an opportunity, and he's just got to play. He's got to play. He's got the size. That's what I'm telling you right now, that's what they like about him.
Yes.
They like the size. Okay. Dante Dion, right?
Dante Dion.
Doesn't have the size.
He's a Smurf.
But he's got a motor. And he's got an attitude.
Motor.
And he's got an attitude.
Really great attitude.
So that little 5'9" frame of him, or whatever it is, makes him 6 foot in his mind.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's got some ups. I know that Spags likes him a lot. He was on the team last year, so that proves that he's gonna,
IR'd last year.
But I mean, he made the club.
But they kept him around.
So you're right, and there's going to be a battle for that fourth corner, and I think it'll be a good battle.
Valentino Blake, the veteran who they brought in from the Titans and Steelers, is hoping to win that spot too. But I've heard much more praise about Hunter so far this spring.
Well, it's youth, okay, and Coach McAdoo, like he has always said, he's not afraid to play young players, okay. But fourth corner, fifth corner, sixth corner, they got to have them. You know that position it begs for depth. I mean, on any team, not just the Giants. On any team, if you've got
critical.
four good corners.
Oh, baby.
The Giants got 3 legitimate, most likely all-pro, Pro Bowl
guys.
Top-level guys. And I tell you, do we all think that Janoris Jenkins could come in and do what he did last year? We probably thought that he could do well, but we didn't think he could do that well. I mean, so you look at some of these free agents, the way that they played last year. I mean, come on. I mean, you look at Harrison and Jenkins, Olivier Vernon, great free agent class.
Keenan Robinson.
Oh, my goodness, yeah. So you hope you get a little bit of that production. I'll tell you a guy that's going to not get a lot of credit, and we've already talked about him, is going to be Ellison. He's not going to be on the stat sheet. He's not going to be a guy that we're talking about every week, but the guy is going to make a big difference. And unfortunately, you're not going to see much of it, but it will be a significant improvement for what has been there in the past. And they went out and got a guy that they needed to plug into a position. And that's what I'm saying. We're not going to talk about him a lot, but I'm just going to tell you right here, I'm going to tell you Rhett Ellison, okay? And I'm going to tell you about the kicker. Those two guys, you wait and see.
Well, Red Ellison is going to fill the role that Will Johnson was supposed to fill last year.
Right.
And when he went IR, that really put the Giants in a bind.
Well, it put everything in a bind because look at their personnel, look at their formations, look what it threw everything for a loop because they couldn't go out and find somebody they wanted to plug in and play that position. Listen, if there was somebody available, they would have gotten them, but they didn't. They couldn't find anybody.
No. I do want to get this Twitter comment in, then I want to go back to what you said about the kicker a moment ago. Gentleman was asking about Fluker. DJ Fluker yesterday, during one of the plays, seemed to be holding his arm a little bit, and then a short while later after going over to see the trainers, he looked like he might have been a little woozy. And they walked him off the field. Michael Eisen from Giants.com and myself, we both thought he looked rather ill, as if maybe he might be well, either fluids were needed or fluids were going out. One way or the other, it didn't look like he was very well. Today, Fluker was on the stationary bike, and Coach McAdoo said he was nicked and did not go any further. So we don't have any more to tell you about DJ Fluker, but another guy who was signed in the offseason and I really believe is going to help this team.
Well, whether he's starting or not, but talk about depth. Do you need depth? He's a guy
the sixth lineman.
Well,
and a short
that's what
yardage.
I mean. That's what I mean. He'll be playing on Sunday, whether it's starting or in rotation or whatever it is. And if he is a starter, then that's happened in training camp. And he beat out Bobby Hart or John Jerry.
Yeah,
who knows?
For sure. 201-939-4513. Phone lines are open. I want to go back to Jeff and ask him about that kicker, Aldrich Rosas, who you have known about him for a long time. In fact, even threw the little breadcrumbs to me and said you should check this guy, and I did, and learned a lot about him and fell in love with this guy's talent as well. And so far, he has been dynamite since he's come here, to the point where the Giants may not even bring in a veteran kicker now. But here's what I want to ask you. Coach McAdoo and Coach Tom Quinn, the special teams coordinator, were asked, how do you know about him until he starts kicking in games? And the answer was, well, we won't know, but we will try to do a number of things to put pressure on him during training camp. Well, my friend, you as a member of the special teams unit, please tell the fans what they can expect these coaches to do to try to mess with this kid's head to give him a taste of the NFL.
Well, I don't think they want to mess with his head. I really don't. Especially if he's having success. The last thing you want to do is mess with, with the kicker's head.
Let me rephrase, to test him. How about that?
Well, the only thing you can do is, first of all, you don't ever go live in field goal session because guys get hurt that way. So you know that they're not going to throw the kitchen sink at him, like just put pressure on him. So what they're going to do is they're going to line guys up around him. And they're going to be screaming and yelling and, and trying to get in his head.
Like a semicircle?
Yeah, if I'm the kicker getting ready to kick the ball like this, there'll be guys around him in the back yelling and screaming. The coaches might call a timeout to ice him. That's about all they could do. But the one thing that will dictate if he's going to make this team or not is going to be his consistency and his charting. From day one, they will chart him every single day. They'll get in the staff meeting and say, how did Aldrich do today? Well, he was 12 for 12 and he hit 3 from 50. If that's the case, then it goes into the preseason games. That's the only real test that he's going to get is those preseason games because those are real games.
Right.
Even though they're preseason games, but you want to know something, Paul? To a kicker and a punter, they're the same as a regular season game. They really are because it's the same thing. Now, for some other guys, you're lining up against a guy that's not going to make the team. And you're a veteran. Well, I'm just going to go right around that guy. I'm going to look good.
Yeah.
But a kicker and a punter, there's no difference.
The ball's the same.
The ball's the same. You're kicking the same. And by the way, the goalposts don't get wider or narrower.
No.
It's still the same. So bottom line is that those 4 preseason games, that will be the test, not to mention the charting that he does during the week and just seeing how he's doing, but that's about it. That's all you can really do.
What do you think, if anything, mechanically? They talk about, and we mentioned this earlier, how the game speeds up for most college players when they come into the pros. Now, technically, Rosas is a first-year player, what they call, because he was on Tennessee's practice squad last year. But for all practical purposes, he's a rookie. What changes for a punter or a kicker from college to the pro level?
Not much, to be honest with you. If from a punter standpoint, it's probably the whole operational time. Where in college, these guys, a lot of the teams don't rush the punter.
Okay.
So he takes a little more time. So it's as far as getting, this won't mean much to any of you, but, in the pros, you're usually getting from snap to kick, and by the time you kick the ball, it's in 1.9 seconds.
Okay.
For the ball snap 15 yards, you catch it, you kick it in a little less than 2 seconds. In college, it's usually like 2.2 seconds. It doesn't seem like a lot, but 0.3 of a second is a lot in punting, okay?
Give me a block.
Well, that's the difference between a step and a half of a guy going like this, because those guys are much quicker. That's probably the biggest difference. The other thing in punting for college and the pros is that direction. Then you got to be able to do some direction in the pro pro level, where college you don't. Place kicking, not a lot of difference. In fact, it's probably better at this level because, number one, you have a better snapper, you have a better holder. And therefore, the ball is going to be snapped better, it's going to be placed better, and your timing is going to be better. Better fields. And the operational time, the coach will actually probably tell you to slow down more than speed up, because everything is better. The snaps are faster. The holds are better. So for Aldrich, it's just more fine-tuning some of his technique. I've talked to Tom about it, Tom Quinn. They've been but they've been tinkering with his first step, his jab step, they call it in kicking, rather than getting long, because he's a big guy, and big guys like to take big steps. So he's got to be just, fine-tuning that. But a lot of upside to this guy, tremendous leg. You'll see it on his kickoffs, and you'll also see you and I were in the cafeteria one day, and wasn't paying attention to you. You were talking to me a lot, but my eyes were just stuck on.
I could tell.
My eyes were stuck out on the field goal. They were doing field goals, and just seeing the way the ball was coming off his foot. Not so we couldn't hear it, but I could just see the rotation, and the ball was very straight. Not a lot of left and right. It was just right down the middle, and watching his technique. So he's a guy that I think can have a very good, promising career in the National Football League. For kickers, guys, it's very difficult. There's only 32 of them, and most of them are really, really, really good. So to break into this league as a kicker is very difficult. You just have to wait your time. And then when you get here, you've got to make the best of it to stay.
And again, this may not be the case at all, but in the pros, a field goal block team, wouldn't they maybe be taller or bigger than they are in college? And if they get any penetration, does that affect the trajectory of the kicker trying to get it over them?
Well, no, because the guys are trained to be able to lift the ball. I mean, they have drills. So when they're being groomed, young guys and kickers in college and stuff, they work on height and how to kick the ball so that they don't get it blocked. Now, some guys can't get that, and they will get it blocked, and then that guy won't be around. And I don't think Aldrich has a problem with it. He has a good lift on the ball, and I've seen it. He's not going to have a problem drilling it over. Now, what will happen is the further back you get, sometimes the kickers try to drive it a little bit, and the trajectory of the ball comes out a little lower, and that's when you get like guys like Chris Canty and those guys that are in the middle that are 6'7", and with their arms they block kicks.
Sure. You don't see those guys in college very often.
No, you don't.
So that could be something he might have to encounter.
Well, a little bit, but I think for the most part, his training as far as technique
would overcome any problem.
Absolutely.
Okay, 201-939-4513 is our phone number. I was going to ask you another special teams question, but I think we have we lost Dave.
We lost him. All right,
Dave from Hackettstown.
I
Please
like
call
to
us
talk
back.
Special teams.
We just lost you. Well, I'm going to ask you actually one more special teams question.
Yeah, I like to hear it
because the Giants' better teams, their championship caliber teams, always seem to have that one gunner who was a notch or two above the rest of the guys in the league. You go back to the Renee Thompsons of the world. You talk about the David Tyrees of the world. Dominic Hickson was terrific at it. Didn't go to a Pro Bowl, but he was damn good. Okay? Who do you think can be the gunner on this roster if the Giants are going to have such a guy and make their special teams unit championship caliber?
So of some of the younger, like the new guys? Or
just either an older guy who could step up and do it, or one of the new guys who maybe you've heard something about or like.
I will tell you this. I think that Eli Apple is one of those guys that can do it well. Whether he wants to do it, that's a different story. Okay, he's a big guy. He's tall. Okay.
Strong. And even stronger. He put on some muscle.
And I also think that Hunter is another guy that can do it.
He's certainly got the size.
Yep. You want the size out there, okay? Because you got to be tough. You got to be able to split the defenders and get down. And if you're a little guy, they'll just smother you. But little guys are usually really
push you out of bounds.
Or they'll push you out of bounds. Yeah. So you got to have a little bit of girth to you. You got to have some speed. And really, that position is all about determination. You got to want to make the play every single time, and that is the toughest position to play because they got two guys out there. They're just going to rough you up for all the way down the field.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't run out of bounds. We know that's a penalty. And not only do you have to get away from those guys and run down, now you got to try to tackle a guy that's probably a better athlete than you are. It's a very difficult position. But I don't have the answer to that right now. I haven't got into the roster enough to see the guys yet, but there will be some young guys out there in training camp and in preseason that we will see at the gunner, because that is a position that if there's a young guy that wants to make a football team, make an impression there, you got a good shot at it.
Somebody like, for example, Travis Rudolph, the wide receiver out of Florida State, who is very tough.
There you go.
And we had his assistant coach on, Lawrence Dawsey,
Okay.
former Giants receiver, came on this show just a week ago and told us he stressed to Travis, you got to be good on special teams if you're going to make the back end of the depth chart at wide receiver.
Wow.
And he says Rudolph is tough, and he loves the kid. We're going to see.
Well, listen, there can't be any better advice than that. And the
Oh,
other
yeah.
thing is that if you are a receiver and you're coming into the Giants team to try to make this team,
Will be
you're
tough.
not going to probably play a lot of receiver.
No.
You're going to play a lot of special teams. So if I'm signing on the dotted line to come here and play receiver for the Giants, I may want to start to maybe think about, kind of honing in on my special teams assignments and things like that.
If I may, I believe, and it's early to tell because we haven't seen contact. Let's make sure we understand that, folks. This has all been no contact in the spring. But I'm getting the inclination based on what I see and what I saw on tape. I think Travis Rudolph is a bit quicker and a bit more athletic, but a similar player to what Jeremy Davis was supposed to be when the Giants grabbed him out of UConn.
Well, look at where Jeremy Davis tried. He actually didn't play many special teams in UConn because he was the man. And then he comes here and they're forced to do it. And you can either –
He just didn't progress enough.
Exactly. So I think that this is a great opportunity for Travis Rudolph to come in, and that's where he's going to have to make this team. I mean, he's a free agent. That's where you have to do it. And you know what? Every year, Paul, we have our guys that we have our eyes on before going into training camp. You always have your sleeper, who you think it is and who I think it is and this and that. He's probably one of those guys you think that may have a chance, okay? And I feel like I haven't seen him at all on the field. I haven't been able to watch many of the practices, but I will tell you this just from knowing about him, knowing the team he played on and some of his character stuff, I think he's probably got a good shot at making this team.
All right, we go to the phones, 201-939-4513. Marquise from California, you're next on the show. Hello.
Hello, hey guys, how you guys doing today?
Great, how are you?
Good.
I'm fine. Reason why I'm calling is, well, of course I'm all the way in California. I'm not in New York to be able to see the guys work out or anything like that. But how's Bisnowadi looking out there in camp?
Bisnovati.
Bisnovati.
He's already starting to become a little bit of a legend around here. He's got the long hair. He's got the sweat going. He's a John Madden kind of guy.
Well, he's one of those guys where he's basically an offensive lineman that he's got the grit and he's mean. He looks the part.
Yeah.
Now let's see if he can play. That's just really what it is. But I think he can play. I really do.
He's athletic. He's energetic. He's aggressive. He's just full of fire and zest. And he's what you call a football player. He's never going to test well. Okay? He will never do all the things that the computer says a typical offensive lineman should do.
Well, either did Richie Seubert.
Exactly. He will just go out there and play ball and kick your butt.
Yep.
That's all he does.
Yep. So he'll get some time. He'll be one of those guys, in my opinion, that will travel with the team, and then he'll see if he has a jersey hanging in his locker the day of the game. He'll be a guy that's maybe makes it some days and some days don't.
He's been working at second string right tackle, and it's because they're so high on his potential. They basically told DJ Fluker for now, just work out at right guard behind Jerry and compete with Jerry. No need to work your tackle very much. Bisnovati's been the guy getting most of those second-team reps, and I think they're pleasantly surprised. I mean, I knew when they drafted him, they liked him in the 6th round, but I think they're even happier they got him now.
Mm-hmm.
Out of Pitt, by the way, and if you know anything about that program and that coach, you got to be a baller or you don't get on the field.
Yeah, and they had a good offensive lineman there, line up there in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear that because I was the guy I really was hoping that could, kind of pan out and be the right tackle that, that we needed or anything like that.
If nothing else, he pushes Bobby Hart, and that's good.
Well,
Competition's
anybody.
good.
Competition especially at the offensive line position. We need competition there. They need to compete with each other to bring out the best in each one of them.
Yeah, they need to compete with Eric Flowers too.
Well, I don't know if you listened to the show earlier when we went on. We talked a little bit about Eric and what he's done in the offseason to make to get himself better.
I just took it in just now. I opened up the app and was like, oh my gosh, the show is still on. Big Blue Kickoff Live is still on now.
Well, you know what, Marquise? We started at 1 o'clock Eastern today because the Giants had their final minicamp practice, and we wanted to bring the show to you after they wrapped up. So that's why we're on so late. But I promise you and the folks, everybody else, we're going to be back to our 12 o'clock noon New York start time
tomorrow,
beginning tomorrow.
And if those regulars that watched, you got a double session of Mr. Feagles. I'm on today's Thursday. I'll be on tomorrow.
Nice.
No.
Nothing wrong with Mr. Feagles. I was the last guy that spoke to you and said it was an honor to speak to you last time, Jeff.
Well, thank you, my man. I appreciate it.
No problem. One more thing before I get up out of here, guys. You guys been to the last camp today and whatnot?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my app started messing up.
That's okay.
Who is the guy right now that's just standing out that no one is speaking about right now? Like, I know you guys are saying Dante Dion. Is that the guy that you guys think is just really standing out at camp right now?
Well, I think the guys who stand out have been talked about by the coaches, because they're going to give praise to guys who seem to be a little bit above the fray.
Well, who do you think?
But if there's a guy for me who really hasn't had a lot of talk, who I think looks like, he could be, something pretty cool. Goldman doesn't get talked about a lot since he got drafted. He got drafted, and then he got here, and not too much gets said about him because, let's face it, he's a running back. Without contact, you can't tell much. But he looks really quick to me. I will tell you that. He looks quicker to me in person than he does on tape when he played for Clemson.
Yeah.
And I'll offer that to you only because people have talked about Rudolph. They've talked about Lacoste. We've talked about a lot of the other draft picks. We've talked about B.J. Goodson stepping up. Everybody's getting a lot of ink. I don't know that Goldman's getting a lot of ink, and I do think his quickness has surprised me.
Well, I'll tell you my guy, and no one's going to like it because it doesn't really matter, but I like Webb. I tell you, I like the way he throws the football. I like his size. I like his –
He's gotten a lot of ink, though, Jeff.
I know, but what I'm saying is that I think that, we're not going to see him, but I feel like, he's a real deal now. He's a big dude, man. And I like his arm strength. I think that he has a great throwing motion, good footwork. And there's nothing better than being able to sit behind Eli for a couple more years if it is, whatever. But the fact is that I like the way he plays, and we'll see a lot of him in preseason.
You will know the two guys when I think he's a combination physical of Dave Brown.
Okay.
Physical when you look at him, but skill set of Jeff Hostetler.
Okay.
That's what I see.
All right.
I know you know those guys.
Yeah, I know both of them. I played in the league with same time they did.
So, you see it?
I think Dave Brown was a bigger guy, a little more thicker, right?
Maybe a little, not much, when he came out of Duke.
But throws a nice ball. Dave Brown threw a nice ball.
Well, Haas threw a better one.
Yeah.
And Haas could have had much more mobility.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm seeing that in Davis Webb.
Hey,
anyway.
Hey, Paul and Jeff, can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, well, I hear you.
I'm sorry. Another thing I just
Last thing. You said we got to run.
Oh, okay. Last thing. I've been looking at the tight ends. I see Will Tye. I see Rhett Ellison out there. The new pickup of Evan Engram. And, the Jarrell Adams signing last year. Like, I feel as if those are a lot of tight ends we have on the roster. And Rhett Ellison, is he going to be more of a tight end or more of a blocker at fullback this season?
Both. He's going to be a blocker. He's not going to be a tight end that catches the ball. His position will be tight end, but you're going to see him. I put the over-under on Rhett Ellison catching 5 balls this year at 5. What do you think? The over-under. Would you take the over or the under? You would take the under, Paul.
I'm definitely going under 10. Now, 5?
Yes.
It might be 7.
then you're taking the over. I think 5's a good number.
You think so?
I mean, the guy's only caught like maybe 8 passes in his career.
Which is why they might, in a goal line situation, just kind of flare him out and shock some people. He might catch 5 balls but 2 touchdowns during the season.
All right, well, that would be fine with me. That would be fine.
Thank you, Marquise.
If we have a 1,000-yard season just because of that, Paul.
I appreciate
right.
the phone call.
Listen,
Thank you.
I'll fly you out from California to go to a Giants game if that happens. No
Great
question.
stuff. Hey, callers, tweeters, we appreciate your interest in the program. As always, Big Blue Kickoff Live here during the weekday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Jot down the number, 201-939-4513. Hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter. For Jeff Feagles, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.